They don't call it colonialism anymore. But make no mistake, Africa is still being carved up, not with flags and armies, but with contracts, debt, and silent chains. This is the new scramble for Africa, and it's unfolding before our very eyes. Africa has always been the land of riches, a continent blessed with unimaginable wealth: gold, oil, diamonds, cobalt, uranium, fertile lands, and the world's youngest population. But with that blessing came a curse: the greed of foreign powers. Yesterday, they came with chains and gunpowder. Today, they return with contracts, loans, and armies. The scramble for Africa never ended. It only evolved. And in this video, we are exposing the tactics foreign powers are using to continue stealing Africa's natural resources and its future. This is the new scramble for Africa, the 2025 edition. In the late 19th century, European powers gathered in Berlin to carve Africa apart. They drew lines across the map, tearing apart kingdoms, tribes, and civilizations, all in the name of profit and power. Africa was not invited. Africa had no voice. And yet, Africa was the prize. That was the first scramble for Africa. But here we are, in the 21st century, watching history repeat itself in new disguises. The tools of oppression have changed, but the mission remains the same: strip Africa of her wealth, weaken her sovereignty, and ensure she remains dependent. Only this time, the battleground is not just land, it is debt, trade, education, and even the minds of her children. This new scramble for Africa no longer uses chains or whips. It uses economics, diplomacy, and military influence. But the logic remains the same: keep Africa dependent, divided, and exploitable. Debt diplomacy is one of the sharpest weapons. Nations like Zambia and Kenya have taken billions in infrastructure loans, only to face debt burdens so severe that critical assets like ports, highways, and energy grids fall under foreign control. In 2020, Zambia became the first African country to default on its debt during the pandemic, and its Chinese-financed projects became a point of negotiation. Similar situations are unfolding in Djibouti, where China now controls nearly 80% of the country's external debt and runs its largest overseas military base near the Red Sea. Trade agreements are another chain. Under the Economic Partnership Agreements with the European Union, African nations are often forced to lower tariffs and keep markets open for European products while still exporting raw materials instead of developing manufacturing industries. This is the same colonial logic repackaged. Africa exports cocoa and imports chocolate, exports gold and imports jewelry, exports oil and imports refined fuel. The cycle ensures wealth leaves the continent before Africans can benefit from it. Then there's the military dimension. The United States, through AFRICOM, operates dozens of military outposts across Africa. Officially, these bases fight terrorism, but in reality, they also secure access to trade routes and resource-rich regions. France still maintains troops in former colonies like Chad and Niger, while Russia's Wagner group has expanded its influence in Mali, Sudan, and the Central African Republic in exchange for gold, diamond, and uranium concessions. These foreign presences are not charity, they are insurance policies for continued access to Africa's strategic resources. When European powers colonized Africa, they understood something critical. Controlling resources meant more than seizing land and minerals. It meant controlling minds. Colonial administrations deliberately designed education systems not to empower Africans with science, engineering, or industry, but to produce clerks, interpreters, and low-level administrators who could serve the colonial machinery. Africans were taught just enough to maintain the system, but never enough to transform it. Decades after independence, that legacy lingers. Across much of Africa, school curriculums still prioritize colonial languages like English, French, and Portuguese over indigenous ones. History lessons often celebrate European explorers and thinkers, while African knowledge systems, technologies, and philosophies remain marginalized. As a result, generations of Africans grow up learning more about Europe's industrial revolutions than Africa's own scientific innovations or its potential to industrialize. This imbalance has devastating consequences. Resource-rich nations such as the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Nigeria, and Zambia still export raw minerals like cobalt, oil, and copper, but lack enough African-trained geologists, engineers, and industrial planners to process them locally. Instead, foreign corporations dominate extraction, shipping raw wealth abroad while Africa imports finished goods at higher prices. Worse, international organizations and donor agencies often dictate education reforms, pushing foreign-designed curriculums that emphasize dependency rather than self-reliance. For example, students may learn the mechanics of trade, but not how to build industries that turn Africa's vast raw materials into finished products. They may study economics through European models that undervalue traditional African systems of trade and wealth. This creates a vicious cycle. Africa supplies the raw materials that fuel the world's industries, from the cobalt powering smartphones to the gold stabilizing economies, yet the very people standing on this wealth are trained not to master it, but to serve those who do. It is no accident. It is the lingering design of a colonial education system that keeps Africa trapped in dependency. To truly break free from the second scramble, Africa must reclaim its classrooms. An education that centers African history, African innovation, African languages, and African needs is not just cultural pride. It is survival. Without it, the continent will continue exporting its future while importing its dependence. Today, the struggle for Africa's wealth is playing out in real time. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, home to over 70% of the world's cobalt reserves, foreign corporations dominate mining. Cobalt powers the global tech and electric car industries, yet Congolese communities remain some of the poorest on Earth. Armed groups, many supported indirectly by outside actors, control mines, smuggling routes, and border crossings. The wealth fuels the global green energy revolution, but the people living atop this treasure are left in darkness. In West Africa, uranium from Niger has long powered France's nuclear plants, providing energy security for Europe, while Niger itself suffers from chronic electricity shortages. Even after Niger's 2023 coup, the tug-of-war between France, the US, and Russia was not about democracy. It was about who would secure access to uranium and military bases in the Sahel. Similar stories echo in oil-rich Nigeria and Angola, where multinational companies profit billions from exports, while local communities face environmental devastation, unemployment, and poverty. Along the Red Sea, global powers race to control one of the world's busiest trade routes. The United Arab Emirates, Russia, China, and the United States have all sought port deals or bases in Sudan, Djibouti, and Somalia. In Somalia, foreign trawlers overfish its waters, leaving locals unable to feed themselves. In Mozambique, foreign-backed companies extract natural gas while insurgencies rage in resource-rich provinces. Across the continent, the pattern is the same. Resources flow out, promises of development flow in, but ordinary Africans are locked out of the wealth that should be theirs. This is the new scramble for Africa, not waged with chains and whips, but with debt, trade, education, and foreign boots on the ground. The world needs Africa's resources more than ever. And once again, Africa stands at the center of a global tug of war. But here is the truth. Africa is not weak. Africa is not poor. Africa is the richest continent on Earth, and its true power lies in its people. The question is, will Africa continue to let others write her story, or will she rise, reclaim her resources, and finally fulfill her destiny? The future of Africa depends on breaking these chains once and for all. By reclaiming education, by uniting economies, by defending sovereignty, and by telling our own history, Africa can end the cycle of dependency and exploitation. But silence is complicity. The time to rise is now. If this message moved you, then help us spread it. Like this video so more voices hear it. Share it, because the world must know the truth. And subscribe to this channel for more untold history of Africa and beyond. Together, we can make sure Africa's story is no longer erased, no longer stolen, but finally told by Africans themselves.